See, I've been doing all this playing. Not very well. I haven't played the harmonica in over a year. Last time was 2 years ago down at the Cayman Islands.
Quiet!
You played for us when you met us in Elko.
Yeah, I played for you then.
Yep, because I have pictures.
But I was playing. I was playing more, but I was playing for kids on the front porch. And they've all moved away. There's no kids that ask me to play anymore or anything.
Annie's song.
There's Annie's song on a higher pitch where I don't have to cup the hands anymore, but I have to close the harmonica. Which one do you like better?
I think I like the bigger one.
Or the low one?
The bigger one you seem a little bit more adept at.
Oh, adept. I'm adept at both.
Well, I think the big one sounds better.
Well, you can play it high too, like this. Or low. That's what you can do. The little one is harder. Some people like the little one.
So you show us how you used to play with your hands.
No,
Just shape it.
I used to do that, but I can't get the sound out now.
You started doing it when you were about 10 years old?
Yes, and all the way until I was 50 or 60 or 65. I mean, all of a sudden, 10, 15 years ago, I hadn't played in a long time, and I started to do it, and nothing came out. And I still can't make a sound.
Which tells me it was something about the shape of the skin.
Something. My hands it used to play better when they got wet. So I wet them, but it doesn't make any difference now. Might have been the growth of the fingers or something, the growth of the skin, reduction or expansion, I don't know.
Well, obviously,
stop me.
Obviously, the problem was that you stopped for a year or two.
Yeah, that's probably it.
But, it was a rare talent that you never were able to teach another person.
No, I couldn't teach them. I did teach a couple of people harmonica, but that's because if they did what I said, it's the easiest thing to start on with a harmonica, I found out. It's not, it doesn't have minors on it. Now, if you have minors in the slides that the great harmonicist invented, that's one thing. This is a big harmonica, but you can't go to minors on this one.
Tell me about those harmonicas. Where'd you get those?
My wife bought me first a $10 little harmonica, German harmonica. Then this is about a $25 Lee Oscar harmonica. The only one that ever could compete with Hohner. Because Hohner holds Hohner has all the patents. I mean, they've done everything with the harmonica, Hohner Company. But Lee Oscar's one that's also had success competing with Hohner.
So
The only one.
how much can I get you to talk about Linda?
Not really. I mean, she was marvelous, and I miss her all the time. I pray a lot and hope to see her sometime again, but I'm not.
She was the love of your life.
She was the love of my life, and she was.
Dad, why was she the love of your life?
Quietly beautiful. I mean, she was quietly, and I never told her enough about her beautiful smile and face and stature and everything else. And I don't know. She was the love of my life because she had an inward kind of beauty that I can't explain. She was outwardly beautiful too, to me, and to other people. But she had a dignity under any kind of situation, whether it was a heartlessness going on in the world or whatever it was. She was able to handle it in a dignified manner, and that's part of the beauty. That's all I want to say there.
Where did you meet her?
At a dog track.
At a dog.
Yeah, she
because
liked
you
it.
guys
We both
did
liked the dog.
You guys were inseparable with the things you had in common, right?
Yeah, we were.
You
And we loved the dog track.
same hobbies, same vices, same everything.
Yeah,
You just
well,
did
I taught
everything
her.
together.
Yes, we did.
What'd you teach her?
Oh, I taught her about the casino life.
Yeah.
And she began to like that, and she became really good at it. She used to win so many jackpots, so many royal flushes, that I thought it was luck. But I'd watch her, and she had a sense of on these machines that was amazing. And she hit like 78 royal flushes at one particular casino alone down here.
How long were you together?
Spent, only about 16, 18 years.
16 or 18 years?
Yeah,
You met her in Colorado, right?
right. That's enough there. I don't want to talk anymore about that. That seems too personal to me right now. It still does. What else can I elaborate
tell me
on?
tell me about your year in Los Angeles. You said you did have an agent at one time.
Oh yeah.
Do
He
you
wasn't
remember
much good.
their name?
No, I don't.
And they got you some parts like, didn't you say that you did some bird noises for a soap opera?
Right, yeah. Yeah, I did those with my hands and things that I had lost now. Yeah, I did some bird noises and there's a lot of different kinds of soap operas, and some of them were kind of like everyday, things in those days. I can't remember them all now, but I got paid. Did a Bull of a Watch commercial, and and all he did was show my wrist and me looking at the watch. And I did a commercial with Gillette where you didn't have any, there was no blade in the razor. And so you could just go zoom over voice somebody else. Zoom, They shaved you clean with a straight razor first.
Right.
And then you could do anything. There's no blade in it, And the Better Business Bureau, I understand, stopped all of that stuff finally. But they paid well. I think I made $200 when I did it. And then they paid me. I got checks for $60, $70 when they shot it in 7 different areas, for a lot of years.
Now, he recently passed away, Frank Gorshin, but
Yeah, he did.
was your roommate in Los Angeles? How'd you meet?
For a short time. Frank was, I met him with a guy by the name of Pat Tano, who was really the closest friend. Those two guys had been roommates or school guys for years, and we all lived together in one house for a while when Frank was running around auditioning for roles, and Pat and I were trying to stay alive.
Was he experiencing some success at the time?
No, very, very little, but he was experiencing some, yes.
Well, he was quite an impressionist.
Right.
Is that when you started doing
Yeah,
impressions?
I think so. I think I started, I was doing them before. I mean, people like Cagney and some of the actors. But I think he and his impressionistic work, when I watched them rehearse and so forth, kind of inspired me. And now today they have a guy that's terrific. Who is that young guy?
Frank Caliendo?
Frank, yeah, Caliendo. I think he's a terrific impressionist. And before that, I thought Rich Little really kind of cornered the market after Frank kind of died off before he died. But Rich Little was marvelous. But have you seen Rich Little? Is he alive yet?
He's alive, but he's lost, his voice is kind of lost, so he can't really do the impressions anymore, I think.
Oh, yeah?
He's I think it was back in the late 90s, I saw him doing headlining at a very small casino in Las Vegas. And I remember seeing him on some morning show trying to do President George Bush, and it wasn't very good, and I think it was kind of embarrassing for him.
Yeah,
and I really have never seen him do television since, so I think he just sort of semi-retired, probably.
But Caliendo is up. He's been up here constantly.
Yeah.
He's been at the Hilton, and he's good. He's not built like an impressionist. He's kind of squat,
Right.
and small, and so forth. But he does some people really well.
So do you remember a particular play that you either starred in or directed that you enjoyed more than anything else, or that you remember better than anything else?
Yeah, probably at Rocky Mountain College when
In Billings, Montana.
Yeah, in Billings, Montana, when I reduced it from 5 acts to 4 acts.
A Shakespeare play?
Yeah, no, geez. I'm telling you, my mind gets once.
Oh, are you talking about Long Day's Journey?
Long Day's Journey into the Night. Why can't I remember the titles of some of these
I'm not
things?
sure why I remembered that. I guess I just remembered that one day you talked about having directed that play.
Yeah. I think probably from the standpoint of the cast, the success, the everything else that I had, that one production of Long Day's Journey into Night was represented kind of my peak in college work that I did.
And then
And I had a marvelous cast in that and everything else.
did any of the actors you directed in college go on to become actors?
No, one of them became a terrific parson, but I can't remember his name now. But I heard him on the radio several times.
As
He
a
became- as a preacher.
television evangelist?
Yeah.
Or radio evangelist?
He wasn't an evangelist, but he was a preacher on the radio.
Oh, okay.
But you couldn't call him really an evangelist. He wasn't. He didn't try to shape your mind.
He was more the Billy Graham type. He wasn't just out for money.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, did you, what was your favorite role that you ever performed?
Probably Kowalski in Streetcar. I think it was about the meatiest, and that's what that particular author had the skills of crystallizing.
Tennessee Williams.
Tennessee Williams had crystallized female personalities pretty well. Probably some of the better. There's another gay character, but he was really insightful when it came to the female mind. And I thought that characters like Blanche Dubois and so forth were really written better than any other American writers at the time, or even now.
Sure.
We said so long, there was 3 or 4 great writers of drama, and we always end up with just a few, just a handful, and I think we're still there. So we put all 4 Greeks, and that Aristophanes is the comic writer, and Euripides, Sophocles, and they're all great tragedians. And Euripides, Sophocles, and who am I missing? Aristophanes is the comic writer. Why? I mean, why am I missing that? Euripides.
Because you don't have to think about it every day?
I don't know. Aeschylus.
Aeschylus, that's it. Yeah, with the mother
Call it
thing.
Aeschylus sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they are amazing still. Those three guys were amazing
Four
writers.
guys.
Were amazing. All four of them, but the three tragedy writers were in a special class of tragedies, never reached. And none of them ever wrote comedies, I don't think. We may have lost some. And we got some idiots that kept sacking the Alexandrian library, like that one guy that burned the libraries about 6 times, forced all the priests to run away with scripts and so forth. What was his name? The guy.
I don't know, Alexander.
No,
he left it intact.
It was a guy like Alexander.
In fact, I think they gave...
No, who's the one that was the ruthless one that died when he was only about 32?
Well, Muhammad Ali is the one, I think, who...
No, I don't mean Muhammad Ali. I mean the guy...
Not the boxer.
No, I mean the guy that desecrated every written word, thought written words were evil, and burned everything that he saw that was...
I don't know who that was. I mean, there was... I'd know if you said it.
Yeah, I know you would.
But anyway, so you studied all of those in university, working on your PhD. What did you do your PhD on?
Upton Sinclair.
That was
Upton
because...
Sinclair was the American socialist who was quite a bit ahead of his time. He was alive when I was doing this work, and I exchanged letters. I have one quote in my dissertation someplace from him.
Where is all that stuff, Dad? Is it just
It's my house. My house. I've got the short copy and a long copy, and you can always get it from the University of Indiana. They'll give you a short one, a smaller one. The pictures I had in the back of that, though, have evaporated. They disappeared as the years went on. Yeah. But I did Sinclair as a playwright.
Yeah.
And he was not a playwright. He was a muckraker. He wrote The Jungle and then many things that
Did you see
turned American life around.
Did you see the movie you recently made out of his book, There Shall Be Blood, about the oil industry in California?
There Shall Be Blood. No, he wrote 100. He's the most prolific writer in the history of America. He wrote Sacco Vanzetti. He wrote Boston. He wrote everything.
Well, it was interesting that Daniel Day-Lewis...
The Lanny Budd series, which is about 100.
Daniel Day-Lewis did a movie about the beginnings of the oil industry in California that was called There Shall Be Blood.
That sounds
and that was
like
written by Upton Sinclair.
It sounds like it.
And it was nominated for an Academy Award about Best Picture about 2-3 years ago. I wondered if you saw that.
There Shall Be Blood. No, I think I missed it totally.
Well, you can rent it. It's available. But
who was in it besides Daniel Day-Lewis?
He was such a dominant figure. There was another person who was, I think, nominated for a supporting actor who I just saw in that movie Cowboys and Aliens. He played the sheriff's wayward son. And he was in that movie too, but I don't know his name.
Yeah, that was a total waste of time for the guy that did Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, he didn't have a thing to do with that movie.
No.
They had nothing.
It was an empty film. Nothing happened.
They let the new James Bond.
It was a great concept, and all they had was a concept. They did nothing with it. So
the guy that plays James Bond now, they let him kind of steal that movie.
Yeah.
But here they got the Indiana Jones guy.
And then he wasn't even the hero at the end. Talk about Deus Ex Machina. It's like they had that girl who was an alien went and saved the day, and it's like we didn't even know who she was or what she was doing in the film.
Yeah. Charlie and I mentioned that, a little incompleteness.
Well, you talk about those 4 Greeks, but you also have talked about Shakespeare.
Shakespeare and Moliere
are the only ones that are
it's all
close
6.
To that class.
All 6 are the...
That doesn't do flat.
That's supposed to go da 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 da. That's the way it has to go, and you have to have a chromatic thing to play. That Larry Adler, I remember all the names now. Larry Adler invented the chromatic harmonica, and he was a good. You ask any musician in the world who knows music. You can ask him who the greatest trumpeter ever was, greatest guitarist. You'll get different answers from different people. But if you ask them who the greatest harmonica player ever was, they'll all say Larry Adler. All of them. Nobody. He started when he was a 13-year-old, 12-year-old kid recording in Brooklyn, and just took it to way out of sight, to where the harmonica's ever been. And he was responsible for all the remakes and the companies.
Well, let me ask you a couple questions. First, I just wanted to ask kind of...
Okay, the Moose?
Well, yeah. Well, how old were you when that happened?
You three kids were in grade school and high school about 35, 40 years ago.
Okay.
My cousin Pat had come out from Philadelphia to visit me, and I was working in Hilton and Jackson Hole.
Okay.
And I must have been coming up through the East Gate. I don't know if I was visiting you and Charlie or in Cody, but I came up that way through the East Gate of Yellowstone toward Fishing Bridge. And what happened was, and I was in a pretty old car that I had, and it was dusk. And I turned, and I was going slow, probably 25 miles an hour, something like that. I wasn't racing at all. And I turned, and here was a moose right in front of me. And I had to hit the brakes because it came up as a really blind, and I just touched him, just tapped him. And anyway, went over the side of the road into a gully. And all I could see was his head up there, the antlers. It's a big male bull moose. And but I really pissed him off. I mean, I didn't realize I got out of the car because I thought I'd maybe broken a leg of his leg or something like that. And I went over to the other side of the car and looked at him, and all of a sudden he came out of there. He came out of there like you couldn't believe. I mean, I had to jump on the hood.
Quiet up there.
I had to jump on the hood of my car to keep from getting totally smashed to pieces by the antlers. And then he got in front of the car. And I was up against the windshield, trying to get to the door to get back in the car. And he was hitting the front and broke one of my headlights.
Wow.
And I finally got back in the car. I finally got back in there, and just there were some other cars coming up behind me, coming from Fishing Bridge, and I was about halfway in between the gate and Fishing Bridge. And the other cars, this moose wouldn't leave the center lane of the highway. He stayed out there and attacked everything. He hitting cars. He was just going out of his mind, and I stayed there. I was there. I backed up and trying to figure out a way I was going to get by. Do I have to go backwards and another 40 miles? I can't get away from Yellowstone Park, that fast. So I waited, and pretty soon a sheriff's car came up there, Cody Ranger car of some kind. There was two of them, and they were using the honkers and everything else, just trying to get the moose off the highway.
Right.
Because he's blocking about 7, 8, 10 cars. Well, I find he was bleeding a little bit from the nose, but not because I hit him. I mean, he hit so much stuff himself, bashing into cars. So I finally crept along to the right, and I got by him. And that was really that's the end of the story, but I had a tremendous amount of respect for a moose, especially for a moose that you hit in the leg, because he was fine. He was in great health. But when I touched him, or hit him very lightly, he jumped in the ditch.
Right.
And that started the whole thing. And when I left, he was still in the middle of the road. They were still trying to get him, honk him off, and he'd go to one side and attack a car, and then another side, and they hadn't done anything. But I understand from later on, from word I got, that the moose was all right, and they finally left the highway, you know. So that's one story. Then one time fishing up near Big Timber, Montana. I was by myself. Charlie was with me up there. We spent a night sleeping in a barn up there once. But I was up there by myself and fishing, and it was a long, long walk to get to the fishing area up this one gorge. And up came a moose and her baby moose, both. And mostly these wild animals, generally whether they're deer, gazelle, whatever they are, they'll stay away from you. They're gonna run from you when they see you. But not this moose. This moose was acting like I was there to attack her baby. And she was coming up real rapidly. She was only about maybe 30 yards away when I decided I was going to go up a tree. There was a tree right near me, and I saw that I could get to the one branch, was a big branch was only about 5 or 6 feet. And I could grab that and hustle up the tree. And I did. And that moose came all the way up under the tree with the calf, with her moose calf. And the calf kind of wandered off. He didn't pay much attention. But that moose, this is a female, of course, no antlers. But I would hate to get in a one-on-one with that animal, because you could hear him just like the other one on a highway. There to make a tremendous amount of noise. It's a kind of a grunt, squeal, but it's a big noise.
I've been chased by a moose once, so I know.
Well, that moose. So I stayed in that tree for. It was only probably. It seemed like I was up there an hour. I was probably only up there about 5, 8 minutes, 10 minutes, at the most. And then the moose backed off, but never stopped looking at me. Was even backed off toward where the calf was going. And I waited until they were quite a distance before I continued my walk up toward my fishing hole.
Where was Charlie at the time?
Well, he wasn't there. I was by myself then. So anyway, I developed a lot of respect for moose in those two incidents.
Tell me the story about the UFO that you saw.
That was a pilot, an Army pilot, and I offered me a ride. He was not in the Air Force.
You remember
an Army
name?
major.
Hey.
First name was Tim. I can't remember the last name. Tim was the first name. But he was an Army. He was in the Army, and the Army didn't have. It's not the Air Corps is one thing, but the Army still has an Air Corps. Sometimes light planes and so forth, but they still have. They had a small air. Anyway, we were flying, and I had an opportunity to go to Belgium. Anyway, it was. This was at night too. And we were halfway in between Belgium and Luxembourg and Belgium, and I was going to Brussels. And all of a sudden, the big blue light just appeared in front of us. We looked and down. We looked down and we saw a blue light, just generating about 50, 75 yards circle of stuff, and we wondered where the light was coming from. And it seemed to be coming from what looked like, our angle, was some kind of a disc. It looked like a big disc firing down a blue light. And
So you're saying the blue light lit up the
75
ground.
yards of diameter on the ground.
Right.
lit up, and we didn't see anything on the ground, any movement or any people or anything at all. It was just this light in this disc, which was still probably a half mile in front of us and down about half.
The disc itself wasn't emitting any light?
Huh? No, the disc we could barely see like a reflection, but the light was coming up from the bottom of the disc.
Okay.
Like a ray, like in a movie or something. And the disc itself was huge. I mean, it looked to be 200 yards in diameter, something like that, 100 yards in diameter. And we flew, we didn't have that, and he started taking pictures. He took pictures. He took 10 or 15 different kinds of shots. He had.
You were in a helicopter?
No, in a light plane. I could show you, like some one of these airport planes out here. There's only a couple. He just.
So he kept doing sweeps over and around?
Yeah. He couldn't make much because it didn't last that long, because he went to the left and stayed about 150 yards away, or 150 yards, and then he went back to the right and so was taking pictures. Took some film, but mostly a lot of snapshots. And then all of a sudden, there was a noise that was like a squeal. That's all I can say. It was like a funnel, something like that. And the whole disc and the light shut off. The disc went up at speeds that are incredible. And then we watched it just go. And it was gone. I mean, it just disappeared. And so we had certain things we had to do in Brussels, and this captain was trying to figure out what he was going to say to everybody when we got back. And when we got back and everything, and I made the report of it to my commander at the 12th Air Force, and he made a report to his commander down in Karlsruhe, where he was stationed, the Karlsruhe area. And I kept in contact with him for several months. He never got his film back. They forced him to give his cameras
You're
up.
talking about the pilot.
The pilot. They forced him to give him all of the film he took. And he never got it back. And 6 months later, he hadn't gotten it back. In fact, and I heard somebody else tell me that he hadn't gotten the film back before I left Germany. So he was still over there when I left, but he had never gotten the film back. And I talked to him a couple times while he was trying. He never did. And they just hush-hushed the whole thing. They just kind of like said to him, "You've been drinking too much Sasquatch or something, drinking too much of this or that, and it's an unlikely story," or something else. And my story went the same way. I talked to the colonel who was the head of my particular squadron there in the Air Force, and he wanted to know about it, and I told him just what I told you. And he thought it was a delightful story that we probably both made up or something like that, and I couldn't get any following word on it at all. I checked so much that I became here comes that guy again. Going to see the colonel about that story.
Right.
And so that was all that happened, but it was very real to the captain and I, at the time. And it's my only encounter I've ever had with a UFO. I mean, the only thing I could even imagine. I've seen things in the sky like a lot of people, but there's always been reasons for it. And I've watched everything I could ever get a hold of. And I told this story once on the radio in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
To a guy who was a talk show host who's dead now. But I answered questions, but it never amounted to anything. And we And I've never experienced anything like that before or after.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not here saying there was definitely aliens there was definitely this or that, or there definitely wasn't, or it was some kind of mirage or some kind of, because it was real and the light was real. But if there was something that the Air Force had that they were testing out in, where's that area you went, Area 51 or something, if they had something like that, something that was unknown, then it's still unknown. So that was that.
Did you ever run into anybody in your life that tried to kind of match your story, saying, "Let me tell you about my experience"?
Oh yes, yeah. I've heard that from quite a few people along the way.
Anybody that you really believed?
Not that I believed that factually was happening, but I believed them and that they thought that was happening. Like the stories of things that kind of like the movies we've seen, you know, of various. And I've seen all the stuff I can see on television, all the lights in Phoenix and all that kind of business. I've seen it over and over again. And the people I've talked to, and I talked to some that night that I talked on the radio in Salt Lake about this experience of mine. And there were people there that were really, really nuts. I mean, or really claimed to see gargantuan type aliens and so forth. I mean, you would only talk to a second or two and you could tell they were dippy.
Right.
And that's the problem, because when a couple of people heard me tell that story on the radio, I was in Salt Lake at the time, and you could kind of tell, oh, here's the guy that's seen the aliens, you know, and it made me mad and just forget it.
Yeah. Well, now there's a story that you told once about Dillinger's fingerprint.
Oh, that makes me sad to think of that. Dillinger's fingerprint card, I got it out of the, and it's all been fired up. The place burned down out of the Michigan State Police thing, and I sent it away to an auction in New York, and it was sold for $2,800 at the time. Dillinger's fingerprint card from the Crown Point prison. He wrote on it, occupation bank robber, John Dillinger, and the whole fingerprint card. And the guy stole it from me. He declared bankruptcy. He stole from everybody, and I got some letters and so forth. But I think that it might have been worth $40,000. I mean, it's the original fingerprint of John Dillinger in the Crown Point prison, where he escaped from later. But it was a phony kind of escape.
Yeah, is that the one where he escaped with like carving a gun out of potatoes?
That was a story. I don't know if that was true. I think the warden was a woman, or Hollister, I believe her name was. But anyway, he got out of there, and with all the Dillinger stuff that's happened recently, I mean, that was unique. There was only one like it in the world, one thing, and I let it go through my hands that way.
Well, how did you obtain it in the first place?
I sold it out of the Michigan State Police files when my cousin was head of the photographic division and I used to swim out there all the time in Lansing, in East Lansing. And I just happened to be going through, and Dillinger's file was there. There was probably some other stuff I could have taken, but I saw this fingerprint card. And my cousin didn't want to have anything to do with it. He knew it, but I just took it. And it was kind of all by itself. And about 20 years later, that whole place burned down. They lost everything that was there, which would easily add to the value again.
Right.
But I don't like to talk about it or think about it, because I've had a few opportunities, but I don't think any of that, because that would sell for $20,000, $30,000, I know, on the internet and right now.
You might be underestimating it. I think it might sell for $500,000.
Well, good.
But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's just an interesting story. But you held on to that thing for 40 years.
All those years, yeah. I was in the attic when I was in the Air Force in Germany and everything else. It was
There's a
always
couple
in my
questions
attic.
that I have, maybe just for my own curiosity. You have two either finished or rough or maybe slightly unfinished manuscripts of books that you've written, correct?
No, just one.
Well, you wrote a book on gambling,
Yeah, that's the one I have. The others,
and then you were doing a play.
I destroyed that.
You destroyed it?
Yeah, I just got mad, and I was having problems, and I wasn't that, and nothing was fitting and everything else, and I regretted it right after I did it because I thought, well, I should go back and try to put things together, but I just burned it up.
That sucks.
Huh? Yeah, it does.
Because I would have loved to have had that.
I know. Well,
Even if it was in rough condition.
you can have the gambling
maybe I
one.
could have turned it
The
into
gambling one is intact. It's
Well,
over.
you should give me that
I
because there's
will.
things I can do with that.
I will. It's overwritten. It's tremendously wordy. There's only one chapter that's really valuable that about how to quit in gambling and so forth. But I wrote it for the. I thought that it would help the average person going to a casino, who's a sucker in the first place,
Right.
have a chance against a major casino. You know,
Right.
I have a chance to know how to quit and how to start and what to do. But I overwrote it so much. I mean, like you do with the first draft. That's all it was. Handwritten overdone draft. Linda typed most of it for me, so it's typed. But it's full of millions of errors and it's overused. But I'll be happy to give it to you. It's valuable if you take a look at one of the chapters, especially. I think it's 5 or 6, where I go into how you quit properly. It's based on the table stakes that you have to start with and so forth.
Right.
But I'll be glad to give that to you.
So there's no other writing, well, except for your dissertation.
My dissertation, yeah, that's there in my apartment. It's there.
To get a master's degree, didn't you have to write something as well?
No, I didn't have to do a master's thesis because I had taken the languages, German and Spanish, and I took all of that, and I didn't, in my program, didn't demand a master's thesis. It was all coursework there.
Okay.
And then the dissertation, though, I had 5 years to do it. That's what you have generally to finish a dissertation when you pick a subject. And I picked up in Sinclair, and I finished that in less than 4 years. And the whole copy of the major one is in my apartment, and also the small copy, the one that's done University of
Well,
Michigan.
those are things I would appreciate more
Yeah.
than any of your other children.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yes, you would.
you can let them have the jewels.
Yeah,
I'll take
they're
the books.
no great jewels. I mean, I have a library that's pretty extensive as far as plays and things are concerned, but whoever wants those can have them.
Oh, I love old books, if you've got any of those sorts of things.
Well, they're mostly theater books,
That's fine.
But
There's
you can.
still.
Yeah, well, Charlie doesn't have enough room in his house anyway. He's got enough movies from me as presents through.
Well,
the
neither
years.
do I, but at least, I mean, especially if they're plays and they're in good condition. And
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And even if they're in bad condition, it's really your life.
I had 2 books that I was writing simultaneously about 30, 40 years ago, but they didn't last long. But the one that I destroyed, I just got real upset because I had put a scene in, and I was in Act 2, and I had put a scene in that was suddenly made me gonna have to write a third act that I didn't want, and I went back and tried to insert it earlier, and I just got angry, and I had other stuff to do, so I just burned everything. I was doing the burning anyway. I was burning trash. And I just went in a rage and got this stuff and dumped it. And I said, now I don't have to worry about a damn thing.
Well, any other stories come to your mind over the last 24 hours that you think, hey, this would be a fun thing to kind of let posterity know about?
Oh,
Who was your best friend in high school?
Mickey Legoff. He's still alive. And he's still, I've got to call him one of these days. We haven't talked to each other. And I guess 5 or 6 years he was out. He was out here in Carson City years ago, and then he got remarried, and his name is Legoff, Mickey. And Gus Martin, and he was a football player for the University of Wisconsin, played in the Rose Bowl, and he's 80, he's my age, he's 81 or 80 or 81, and he still works every day just like he did all his life.
Doing what?
I mean, doing a seamstress, a business of Venetian blinds and seamstress, and he has 15 seamstresses sewing for him and his brother. They run the company. His father ran the company, and his mother ran the company before that, way back in high school and before. You got to be 75, 80 years now altogether, and they're both in their 80s, and he weighs about 400 pounds
And he
or
lives
more.
where?
Highland Park, Deerfield.
Yeah.
He lives in Deerfield.
That's where the business is located?
Yeah, in Deerfield, Illinois. And he works every day. I mean, he's put kids through college. Some of them have played ball, some of them haven't. And he's never had one that really wanted to take over the business. He had one son that said, can I do it part-time? And my Gus went nuts. He's part-time. He's devoted like 10 hours a day to that
Where
business.
does Mickey Legoff live?
He lives in Chicago.
What does he do for a living?
Nothing now. He's all of a sudden in my age again. He was, when I talked to him on the phone a couple of years back, he was still going to the airport, the main airport,
Quiet.
major airport, right there in northern Illinois. He was going there and helping unload bags and drive a truck and something like that. But he's still working. He's still trying to work part-time. You know.
What did he do in the major part of his life?
He worked for Libby's for a while, the food company. I don't know. I'm not sure what he did there. But mostly he's just been part-time worker most of his life.
Well, who would you say was, as far as you can probably mention Linda as your best friend, but who would you say was your closest friend throughout your life?
Well, Linda, yeah. Linda's the best person I ever knew because of a lot of reasons. But
Besides Linda.
besides Linda, I can't get away from Linda. All of a sudden, I got to say something. I told you yesterday she had so much grace and so forth, and I think one of the amazing things about Linda was that she never let anything get her down to the point where it destroyed. I could maybe do some ranting and raving here and there, but Linda would always help me because she was always calm. She loved to laugh and have a good time and everything else. And no matter what occurred, she had a lot of sadness in her life with her mother's early death and her 50s.
Yeah, there it is.
I remember it now.
The theme?
Gone Once Upon a Time in the West.
Oh, the theme from it.
You gotta go one or two ways. One or two ways this goes. Remember that? When she was bringing out at the end of the movie water for all the ranchers. I thought that was one of the 4 great westerns I've ever made. One scene was bad. The one scene where Henry Fonda was, where he knocked the crippled guy down inside. It was kind of just a set. And it didn't fit with the movie. You could see they just kind of tacked it in. But all the rest of that movie was terrific, I thought.
It was unique.
Yeah, tour de force for 4 people.
And it was made for television. It was never. It might have been a theatrical release in Europe, but I think it was made for television.
Are we filming?
Mm-hmm.
Charles Bronson, I saw in an interview. He went there about 6 or 7 years later. The movie was made once upon a time in the West, I think, about 1967. And by 1975, he went over to Paris, and there were long lines to the movie, and it was Once Upon a Time in the West, which was shown continually for like 11 years after the movie had come out in one particular theater in Paris. And he couldn't believe it. He walked up, he said to the line, and said, "What are you people doing?" He said, "I made this movie years ago." And then they had so much traffic and everything else, and autograph hounds, that he had trouble. The police had to help him get out of there. But that's amazing, that the way that movie ran in Paris.
It was interesting. I saw his last film, which was a remake of Moby Dick.
No, remake of the one Edward G. Robinson made. Edward G. Robinson was the original guy.
Billy Budd?
No. Because the guy who played Superman played the young guy.
Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, Christopher Reeve played the younger guy in that movie. And he looked at Charles Bronson as kind of a grandfather then. You know, that was the last thing he did. But
he was never a great actor.
He died the same way that Edward G. died in the original movie. The original movie was, as usual, was better, than that. It's just like the John Wayne film where he won the Academy Award. I thought was the better one of the two that they made. What was that? The title?
True Grit.
True Grit.
And
yeah, I thought True Grit.
Midnight Cowboy.
John Wayne's True Grit. Oh, I don't know. Did they ever make another Midnight Cowboy?
No, they never made a new one. But I did think John Wayne's version was better.
Yeah, I did too.
Just as an overall movie experience, I thought it was a better film.
I didn't mind the guy who played. I've had respect for him and his family and his father as an actor.
And his brother and his brother.
Brothers.
Yeah.
I only know one brother. Did he have 2 brothers?
No, I guess there was only. I'm thinking of the Carradines. There was only
The Carradines. Yeah, they went on.
Jeff and Bo. Jeff and Bo Bridges. Bo Bridges.
Bo Bridges was a matinee idol type, and all of it. And I thought the other guy would just kind of disappear, but he came back real strong.
Yeah.
And he won the Academy Award, I guess.
Well, he's had a long history.
Yeah.
Of some good films.
Made some good ones.
Jagged Edge.
I love the racehorse movie.
Yeah.
Terrific.
That was Seabiscuit.
And that was done exactly like I saw it, and then on television when I saw it, they showed the match race of Seabiscuit, and it was exactly the same as the movie. They did it exactly the same. Huh. They both got off to a beautiful start without a starting gate. When he matched against the War Admiral.
Yeah.
War Admiral was like twice as big a horse, and Seabiscuit was just plodding along.
Did you see Secretariat?
Yeah.
I didn't know how. I never realized how glorious of a win that was.
Oh, it was. I mean, I get goosebumps when I watch the third race of the big 3 races when Secretariat won in New York. It's a 1.5-mile race. And the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness were both the 2 short races. Kentucky Derby actually was a little longer than the Preakness, which was an eighth of a mile shorter. And then the last one, which is what? Anyway, that movie.
Downs. Something.
Yeah, something down. But that race, there's only 5 horses because they didn't contend with the 2. The horse that finished second in all 3 races was the only contender that Secretariat had. And he stayed even with Secretariat all the way through the first turn. When both horses were 20 lengths ahead of everything else.
Right.
And then Secretariat, everybody, the owner of the second place horse thought, oh, we got it made because Secretariat has always come from behind. He's never been a front runner, so he's going to wear himself out. And it didn't happen. He took off, and the jockey, I've heard said if he'd have known that he was like 50 lengths ahead, when it came around the far turn, the other horses were just finishing the backstretch. All of them.
Right.
He said if he'd have known that, he could, I mean, he set the world record. I think it's still the track record.
It is, yeah.
But he said he could have put another whole second maybe, which is a phenomenal amount of time in a horse race. A half a second or a second on him by just hitting him a couple times. Because he responded to a couple of whips. But he never hit him at all because he looked behind in the stretch when he was 30 lengths ahead and didn't see any horses. So he just let him go, but he could have hit him a couple times, said he would have gotten even faster. It was an incredible race.